You think that after all these years, heroines would have learned by now? If you find yourself in a creepy house with dubious characters that have sinister secrets, always check the attic first. Apparently Jane and Katie didn't get that memo. As Shakespeare would say, the course of true love never did run smooth. And for as long as we have put pen to paper, it has been mankind's great entertainment and privilege to see this passionate struggle play out through the ages. For there has never been a more important story than the story of love. From Shakespeare to modern cinema, the tale of romance has been played out again and again, rarely changing from its basic format of boy meets girl. However, it is the Gothic romance subgenre that has truly been perfected in its formula, so much so that one can't possibly walk past a romance section in a bookstore without seeing a nightgown-clad woman fleeing from a castle in the dead of night on the cover. In this video, we'll be looking at the step-by-step formula that makes these copy and paste narratives so popular and applying them to the unique texts of Jane Eyre and Gone Home. In doing so, we shall prove that these texts greatly differentiate from the formula and are not just another tale of Gothic romance, but rather a heroine's fight for independence and freedom. We will be referencing The Definition Expanded by Pamela Regis and Somebody's Trying to Kill Me and I Think It's My Husband by Joanna Russ. Published in 1847 by Charlotte Bronte, Jane Eyre was considered to be a groundbreaking narrative. While on the surface, the story of a subservient woman under the employ of a brooding man may seem familiar. The story even goes so far as to invoke the classic image of women running from houses. However, if we look deeply, it is clear that Jane Eyre is in fact a whole other cup of tea. One of the most striking differences in heroines in the novel is Jane's strength of character, rarely found in other romances. She's relatable because she is not perfect, and she's not afraid to go toe-to-toe with a brooding man. Most predominantly, it is her will to put her own self-worth and independence first, even before true love itself. Joanna Russ, in her study of Gothic romance, argues that, at their best, heroines merely stand passively for love, goodness, redemption, and innocence. They are special and precious because they are heroines, and that is that. In the case of Jane Eyre, however, while the accounts of love, goodness, and innocence are there, our main heroine is certainly not as passive as she appears to be. Jane actively takes control of her life on more than one occasion during the novel, after having spent the majority of her childhood and adult life having things decided for her. She displays not so passive characteristics. This is most notable in her insistence to leave Thornfield Hall when she assumes Mr. Rochester is to wed Miss Ingram, despite their obvious love for one another.
Must you leave?
Because of your wife.
I have no wife.
But you are to be married.
Jane, you must stay.
And then again in her abrupt leaving of Thornfield Hall, when she learns that Mr. Rochester already is in fact married to a crazy lady who keeps changing the attic because she's crazy, and oh my god, Jane, get the hell out of there, this man is crazy, go, run from houses! It's this iron will and need for independence that stands Jane apart from other heroines of the genre. While Jane does stand for good, she does not let her obvious and deep love for Mr. Rochester corrupt her morals and beliefs when she finally learns about the late Mrs. Rochester. Rather than succumb to desire, she takes control of her life and seeks freedom that she knows she will not receive as Mr. Rochester's mistress. Inevitably, we come to our moment of ritual death, when all the barriers are cast away, with the death of Bertha, the burning of the house, Mr. Rochester's disfigurement, and Jane's abrupt rise in status and financial situation. All the external barriers that have kept these two apart are now gone, and our lovers are free to be together. Before this ritual death, it was the external barriers and Jane's internal qualms keeping them apart. However, at the end of the novel, in a show of feminist role reversal, Jane comes back to Mr. Rochester a free and independent woman. This time around, Jane proceeds to do the courting, and the second marriage proposal is introduced. Happily ever after is attained as our two lovers are at last on equal footing. Because, reader, I married him, not he married me.
Dear Katie, I'm sorry I can't be there to see you. I'm just sorry. But please, whatever you might find, don't tell Mom and Dad. I don't want them to know. I don't want anyone to know.
Gone Home acts as a video game narrative. We, the player, must explore an abandoned house to uncover the story within. Each room acting as a sort of chapter in the narrative as we make our way through the house and the truth starts to reveal itself. As the player, we find ourselves in the first-person perspective of Katie, our main heroine Sam's big sister. The story already veers off course from the traditional Gothic romance by having the player not see the story as it happens, but read it through epistolary clues throughout the house. This serves to add the classic mystery to the story as well as a sense of curiousness and dread, as the fate of the characters remains unknown, as it has been assumed that the main events of the story have already taken place. As we make our way through the house, we start to piece together the story of Sam, starting with her troubles at school to her fleeing the house in the night with her lover Lonnie. The relationship with Lonnie does take center stage in the narrative. However, we are treated to other clues of the parents' lives as well as the dark mystery of the house being haunted. These outside storylines give us the impression of what it's like in Sam's day-to-day life, the house serving as a metaphorical cage for her and her internal barriers. The act of going through the house and unlocking the secrets and truths as the player serves to give the audience a sense of unraveling the truth and setting Sam free. This is further backed up by the story ending in the attic, as we have come to the most secret and deepest part of the house where the ultimate truth lies. When comparing it to Russ and Regis's formula, Gone Home stands out with its modern take on storytelling, the change to a same-gendered romance, the switching of perspectives, and the change in literary platform for telling the story.
She said, "Sam, I want you to pack up everything you can and get in your car and come find me. And let's just drive until we find somewhere for us." And she asked me if I could do that. And I said yes.